Sincerely appreciate it, and we, I believe we can all hear me because I trust that the connectivity is okay. If anyone can hear me, please just let me know in the comment section that you can, or in the chat box that you can hear me, so that we can make progress. So
We can
we,
hear, sir.
all right. So we are going to take a relatively different format today because of the nature of what we are discussing. Um, you will help me, just pay attention to these instructions. The first thing is that we are going to do a feedback session just now, and we also will be having breaks in between in the discussion so that we can take your questions in real time. So if you, but you will give me the opportunity that when I start talking, you listen, and then at some point I'll have a break, and then I'll take questions. But for the feedback, I had intended to do a live, a Google form, but I think what we can do is just type in the comments or in the chat box what your feeling has been about this series. Let us know what you think about what has been going on. Or if we, while most of us will be typing, we can take one or two persons who would just tell us how they feel about the sessions. So if you are willing to talk to us about how you feel concerning these sessions, I am very much open to having you speak to us. Is anyone interested in just sharing? How do you feel about the session so far? Very quickly, so that we don't waste so much of our time.
Yeah, good evening, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. So the rest of the people, you can drop your feelings, your assessment of this session in the chat box. I will be very glad to read through them.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Gideon Akpan. I'm joining from Lagos. Yes, and by the grace of God, I've been in the series from the beginning, and it has been really eye-opening. It has really been mind-blowing. You know, especially on the area of LinkedIn, because I'm I'm also positioning myself on LinkedIn to reach out to so people that I can offer my service to. And from the analysis that was given, I believe it was last week or the day before or the other one. I received so much insight that I had to go back to check my LinkedIn bio. I had to see I could reorganize myself, and I'm still going to do some research because I know there are still more, as there are so much more I need to also work on. So I so much appreciate Mr. Chukwemeka. God bless you so much, and also the entire YPF team, Akwa Ibom State. May the Lord continue to uplift and uphold this great movement in Jesus' name.
Amen. Thank you so much. So I can also see in the comments in the chat box, somebody has dropped a message there. That's Victor Emmanuel. It's been an eye opening to many things. I don't know. That's my feeling. So please, the rest of the people in the room, please just drop a message in the chat box. Tell us how you feel about these sessions. Is this something you would want to see us continue? Is this something you would want to join, subsequently? Because I believe there will be more sessions sometime at some point, maybe going into business discussions and all of that. So if you would be interested in joining these sessions subsequently, drop a message describing your feeling, and also drop your email address so that in subsequent sessions you can be informed. The message can be passed across to you that, well, there is this session coming up, and if you are interested or if you are available, you will be able to join. Now let's get started. Can we all see my screen? Because I want to do some things today. I will make presentations and then I will show us what the visa application portals look like using the UK visa application example, and then we can make progress. Please, if you can see my screen, tell me in the comment section that you can see it. David, can you see my screen? Or Gideon, can you see my screen?
No, no, we can't see it.
Oh, interesting. Okay, let me reshare it. I think it went. All right. Okay, is it up now?
It's coming up.
Okay.
Right.
It's
It's
on
on
Okay,
now.
now.
yes, yes.
All right.
This
So,
application
So,
yeah. So today we want to discuss something very important, and that is visa application. There is noise in someone's background. Please, can you mute yourself if you are in a noisy place? So, the point is this.
Abiola, please put yourself.
Yes. So we have been discussing a lot of things about academics. We have discussed a lot of things about scholarships. We've done all these conversations. Now, the point is that you need something called a visa to be able to travel from your country to that country where you win a scholarship from. And a visa is more like your license to travel to a country, to enter into a particular country. It could be a country in Europe, in South America, it could be a country in North America, it could be anywhere. Even in some African countries, you will need a visa as an African to go into those countries. Except for, of course, if you are from the West African country, there's this ECOWAS free movement. So long once you have your international passport, you're able to move around the countries of ECOWAS. But once you begin to move outside of the ECOWAS states, then you need a visa. And how do you go about getting this visa? That's the subject we are going to be discussing today. And then, of course, once you have a visa, then the next thing becomes how do you get a ticket? Or how do you travel to that country? To travel to the country, you will need a ticket because in some cases you might have to fly. In some other cases, you might have to travel by bus if it's within Africa. But regardless, you need a ticket to be able to move from that country to the other. So imagine that you're in Nigeria and you've won a scholarship in the United States. A visa is your license to enter into the US and be able to conduct that study that you have chosen to conduct. Now, if we are talking about visas, there are a few things that are very important because the way the visa application process works is in stages. And I've decided to break this down into this category of stages so that we all can know where we are and what we should be doing at the point where we are. Right? The first part or the first stage in your visa application journey is where you are doing information gathering. Information gathering. This is really very important. And it's very important because if you don't gather the right information, if you don't have the right knowledge, if you don't have the right understanding of what is ahead of you, you might find yourself ending up in the hands of an agent who will take you to maybe which country now? Who will promise that he's taking you to Austria, or who will promise you that he's going to take you to Australia and then you end up finding yourself in Austria, or who will promise to take you to North America and you end up finding yourself somewhere in South America. After all, there is America in both. But you need to pay attention and gather the right information. And the information you will gather includes information about the country. This country you're interested in going to, what is obtainable there? Because all the countries will vary. And in fact, by the time you begin to gather this information, you'll begin to narrow down on your choice of where to go. You'll begin to narrow down on the choice of which country should I go to for my studies. For instance, if you're going to Russia, the immigration regulations in Russia are different from the immigration regulations in the UK. the immigration regulations in the UK are the information, and what course do you want to study even in that country. At the point of studying that course or on graduation from that course, does the economy of the country have accommodation for you into the workforce? Do you have a place in the workforce? You know, you can go to a country where there is no tourism and somebody offers you tourism and hospitality. So, but at the information gathering stage, you can figure out what the country looks like. You can also figure out where is the embassy of this country located. You know, I know somebody who is planning to go to Lithuania for studies, and Lithuania does not have an embassy in Nigeria. So if you don't do your information gathering properly, you end up coming to that stage where you're already applying for visa and planning to go for your biometrics, only to find out that the embassy of the country is not anywhere in Nigeria. And then that you have to travel to Egypt, or maybe you have to travel to Turkey. When my friend was traveling to Slovenia, he had to go to Turkey, spend 2 weeks in Turkey to be able to process his visa. So these are some of the information you want to gather. Where is that embassy located? And what is their visa validity? Do they give you a visa today and the visa expires tomorrow, or do they give you a visa today and the visa lasts for 2 years, and then at the end of that 2 years, what's the renewal process of visas? Now this depends on what your long-term plans are. If your long-term plan is to settle down in the country, you need to explore the options that are ahead of you. And then even if the country does not have that after study option, then you begin to plan early enough so that when you are finishing your studies, you know that this country does not offer this, and then I need to begin to plan my move early, that at the end of my study, this is the next country I'm going to. You need to pay attention to all this information gathering stage. Now, after you've gathered your information, you need to gather your documents. Right? It's also at this information gathering stage that the documents that are required. For instance, if you're coming to the United Kingdom, the kind of medical test you do is different from the kind of medical test you do if you are going to Canada as a student. I know this because I've tried both visas as a health analysis as compared to somebody who is coming to the UK. If you're coming to the UK from Nigeria, you just do a tuberculosis test, which, you know, very often comes out, you know, that most of us are tuberculosis. So, but if you're going to Canada, it's different. Now, if you're also going to Canada, as I applied for Canadian reports to be able to apply for a student visa. If you're coming to the UK, you don't need that. From Nigeria at least, because I know that when I was coming to the UK, I had no need of a police clearance report to be able to apply for my visa. These are some of the things you understand at your information gathering stage. Now, information, you move on to document gathering. All those relevant documents, you begin to gather them. Because if you apply for visa with incomplete documentation, you can believe me that the visa application is now going to be delayed, or that visa application is going to be rejected. After you've gathered your information, what else do you do? There might be need for medical analysis, and there might be need for police clearance reports. If you have any need of these things, you have to go get those specific documents. You have to go through those processes. Then when you have gathered all these documents, the next phase is you applying for the visa, submitting your biometrics, and then, you know, going for the biometrics basically is that the embassies will require you to come to either the embassy, or in most cases they will require you to go to a visa application center, either one that is called TLS or VFS Global. Those are the more prominent ones in Nigeria, located mostly in Abuja and Lagos. They have branches, I think, in Port Harcourt, and then a new branch in Enugu State in Nigeria. If you are joining us from outside of Nigeria, please, you might need to find out specifically where these embassies and where these visa application centers are in your country. So you go to that place and you submit your biometrics. Back in the days, most people would apply for their visa in hard copy documents, but these days you have the option of applying for your visa in soft copy. That's, you go to the website of the agency of the embassy, and then you complete the application. Most times it's actually not the website of the embassy, it's the website of the immigration the immigration department of that country, you know, that you run these visa applications from. The government will always have like a every visa application comes into, but regardless, when you go to the website of any embassy, you will find all the information you need to know about their visa application requirements and then about the timings and those kind of stuff. Then you submit your biometrics, basically your picture, your thumbprint, and all of those kind of things that they might want to do. After you've done that, the next stage is you going back to wait for a decision. The decisions will be made by the visa officer, sometimes located within the country where you are applying from, or sometimes located completely outside of the country where you are applying. If you apply for a visa to the UK in Nigeria, the decision making process happens somewhere, I think in Liverpool, somewhere within the UK. So the final decision over your visa does not happen in Nigeria. And this is something most people do not understand. And the reason, and one of the main reasons why people spend a lot of money on agents, we are going to talk about agents and whether or not you should be using them towards the end of this presentation. But this is the standard stages, or these are the standard stages in the visa application process. You want to know all these stages, you want to know what you should be doing at every given time, right? Any questions so far?
No, sir. Fire on.
All right. Since there are no questions, please, those who have just joined us, we are asking for reviews. Please, in the chat box there, drop us a review of these events. What do you feel about these events? The YPF education series. Please don't leave this discussion without dropping a message that tells us your feedback about your feeling concerning these events. So I will return to my slides now. And then the next thing is student visa applications. What are the specific documents that you might need? You see, in the previous slide here, I have written something that says it varies based on visa type and country. So most of these things, from the document type to the biometrics requirement, how you go for your biometrics and when you go for your biometrics, most of them would vary depending on the type of visa you are applying for and the country you are going to. If you're going to Canada, the requirements will be of a certain kind. If you're coming to the UK or going to Australia, the requirements will differ. Again, there are different visa categories, but we are going to be focusing on student visa application today because, again, we've been discussing scholarship, so it's just ideal that we focus on the student visa application. But regardless, even if you are going to apply for work visa, the information I'll be passing today will still be relevant to you. And because we trust God that when we do our best, we get the best result, I've highlighted approved as the bigger thing. The decisions we are expecting to get after this series is to get visa approvals and not visa rejections. But you just needed to know that there could be rejections on visa applications sometimes. So, student visa application, what are the documents? These ones are standard. You are going to need your international passport, a valid international passport. And when I say valid international passport, the validity of your passports can, you might have a passport that still has 3 months validity. Validity is the time between the day you are applying to the expiration date on your passport, right? But your passport might be valid for 3 months, and a country will tell you that is no longer valid. It's not valid because at the time you are entering that country, the passport may have expired, or you might just get into the country and then the passport expires. The country might tell you that you need a passport that has up to 2 years validity and then up to maybe 6 free pages that have not been stamped with visas before. So you need to understand these requirements at your information gathering stage so that you know whether the passport you have is still valid in the sense of the country you are trying to apply to, or whether you need to do an early renewal for your passport. For Nigerians, most of the big countries in the world have got Nigerian embassies where you can renew your passport if it gets expired. So if you still have like 2 years validity and the country accepts it, you don't need to worry about how will you renew your passport or how will you travel out of the country at the end of your stay, because you will be able to renew your passport in the countries. And in fact, sometimes I don't know how it happens in many other countries, but I remember that back in 2015 in Russia, it was much easier for me to renew my passport in Moscow than than it would be for me to renew my passport in Nigeria. So you need to know that your visa is, you need to know that your passport is valid, and then you need to be able to commit to that, using that passport that has that level of validity. The other thing is you need a proof of admission. You need a proof of your admission. You need a proof of admission. Now, in your proof of admission, what you basically require there is the fact that you have applied to a school, and then the school has given you admission, or in some places it could be called a CAS document. So there are two stages. First is you secure admission. Sometimes it comes as conditional offer of admission, and then after you've secured that conditional offer of admission, the school will tell you maybe to provide IELTS, to provide this and that, show proof of funding and all that. When you've done all of that, they give you what is called an unconditional offer, and then on the basis of that unconditional offer, they prepare a special document for you that you will take to the embassy, or you will submit at your during your visa application process. In the UK, there's a document called CAS. It's for both masters and PhDs, and then there's another document called ATAS for PhD students. All of these are documents that will go into your visa application, and you need to secure all of them. And that's why you don't want to jump into visa application when you don't have admission, but you need to understand the process ahead of time. The other thing is proof of fund. And I can tell you that most visa application rejections are tied into proof of funds, because everybody in their right minds will secure their passport, they will secure their admission before going to apply for visa. What happens is that the proof of fund component, that's your evidence that you have sufficient money to take care of your studies in that country and your living expenses. For most countries, is going to they will require that you present a proof of fund that is valid for maybe 28 days, or a proof of fund that is valid for maybe like 3 months. That's how do I explain this? Your proof of fund, for instance, the country, if you're coming to the UK, they will tell you to provide a bank statement that shows that you've had sufficient money to take care of you for 1 year or for 9 months in the UK for a period of 28 days consistently. So that money must have been in your account for a period of 28 days. For the UK. For some other countries, it might vary. It might be like 3 months, it might be anything. But in your information gathering stage, you figure out how many days the proof of fund needed to be there. Then, for some countries, they will tell you that the proof of fund should be an equivalent, or a minimum of the equivalent of your 1 year school fee, your tuition, and a specific amount of money per month for a period of maybe 9 months or a period of 1 year. So you will now go and do a calculation of, if the country says that I needed £500 per month for a period of 12 months, that's 6,000 pounds, right? And then my tuition fee is £4,000 or maybe £12,000